Okay, I have a full self-driving test route here. Quite a bit's going on. I think there's 5 roundabouts, a couple of intersections, so we'll see how full self-driving beta does. I did this route, I think 2 days ago, maybe it was yesterday, and it did the entire thing with no disengagements. Very good job. We'll see if we can recreate that today. It takes about 15 minutes or so, and it's somewhere around 5 miles. Okay, so the first thing we're going to encounter here is some light construction. I call it light construction because really it's just mostly cones. It doesn't interfere too much. There are a couple cones that stick out just a little bit into the lane. So we'll see how we kind of navigate around these cones. And we do. We deviate a little bit. And we stay in our lane. And then we have a double left-hand turn here. Let's see if we select the inside or the outside. Okay, we select the inside turn lane. This is where we were yesterday, and it completed the maneuver just fine yesterday. We do have some concentric traffic on the outside of the corner. I had that yesterday, and it worked fine yesterday, so we'll see how we go today. Okay, here's our green arrow. I have traffic behind me now and to my right. So we're taking the inside of this turn. There is a kind of a marked lane there, which should help out. Pause a little bit, slow down a little bit. But ultimately, good job through that turn. This guy's merging in front of me, and we handled that very gracefully. Bit hesitant going at that last intersection, even with the green light. So I tapped the accelerator and then just did a autopilot snapshot. That should go back to the autopilot team, and then they'll be able to figure out why it was hesitant for a green light. Okay, green light, and we go at a very appropriate time. Okay, here comes our first traffic roundabout. Generally speaking, you pretty much always have to use the accelerator to coax it to go through these. It doesn't want to just kind of do a zipper merge. So like right now, I'll give it some gas, and we made it through just fine. Okay, so that was very, very good, with the exception of I did have to give it accelerator to tell it just how quickly to go through that intersection and when to go. The act of pressing the accelerator should automatically create kind of a trigger snapshot for the autopilot crew to take a look at that and maybe make it better. Okay, here comes our next roundabout. The car is pausing. This car is going that way, so we'll give it some accelerator to let it know it's safe to proceed. And we're on our way. This human driver in a Range Rover, Land Rover, whatever it's called, just drove on the yellow hashes there, which I would never do. And if Full Self-Driving did that, I would do a bug report on it, because I don't think that's right. But the human driver just did it. So if Full Self-Driving did that for them, they might be okay with it, but I don't think that's an appropriate thing to do. Here comes our third roundabout of this trip. Just a reminder, no disengagement so far with Full Self-Driving. All I've done is just given it inputs on the accelerator to remind it or let it know that it's okay to proceed. I'm off the gas right now, just gave it a little bit there because it was hesitant. But yeah, no disengagements. All I've done is give it some inputs with the accelerator.
Whatever, they come and they give what's called a job talk. That's what every academic does, a job talk in order to get they talk to us about a department, about what they do. And so it so happens that we need a metaphysician, and now we're hiring again for one. And so I've learned a lot about metaphysics in the last year, and this is what I've learned, that they use physics as a basis for understanding what we can know about what is real. And what is real is really difficult to pin down. And so your question is, what is belief? Well, belief, does it correspond to reality? That's the question I would ask. And first, we don't even know what is real. So the table, they would say, how do we know that the table even exists? Well, how do we differentiate it from the floor, for example? So these are the questions that philosophers are asking. No one else is, of course, but philosophers are asking these questions, and they have different answers for it. So I would say that it's very difficult to know what is real, and in fact what I do usually is I paraphrase my friend.
Okay, for some reason at this traffic circle, it doesn't identify it as a traffic circle, even though there's a yield sign, and it goes through in a very natural fashion. It might be a navigation database issue where it doesn't have it coded as such. So that one, it didn't require any accelerator input, just because it's coded differently in the database. A little bit of debris there that we straddle. Okay, it did want me to tap the accelerator. I didn't actually press it to tell it to go, but I did tap it just to let it know it was safe to go, and the message said to do that. And then it went through no problem. Okay, so we're almost to our destination. We just have to go down this street here, a couple more turns. Should be relatively easy, simple turns, no traffic. I don't want to speak too soon, but we made it point A to point B. We did an entire route with no interventions, all the way from essentially my front door of my house, which was about 2 or 3 minutes before I even started recording the video. So 6.4 miles, 16 minutes. That was completely minus about 0.1 miles and maybe 1 minute. That was completely full self-driving with no disengagements. The only thing I did was provide a few accelerator inputs at the roundabouts to let it know that it was safe to go. Other than that, that was point A to point B, no disengagements, nothing scary. I am super excited about full self-driving, and if this is where we're at here, December 2020, I absolutely can't wait to see where we are in another, 12 months or even less. Okay, here's another full self-driving test route. The car is currently incapable of doing cul-de-sacs like this, so I'll disconnect and do the maneuver. It's a very simple maneuver. I mean, it's just a circle. So I have no doubt that eventually it can do this type of maneuver without any trouble, but it's just currently not something that it supports. So I'll do that manually, and then we'll consider this the start of our drive. I will even reset. Well, that's covering that, so I can't see what's going on. But I'm going to reset the trip counter here. It's clear. I still can't see it. There we go. Reset. Okay, so we'll call that our start point on this 4-mile, 9-minute drive. Okay, that traffic circle was handled in an alright fashion. I did use the accelerator to help work its way through there.
And colleague, Brother Guy Consolmagno. He's a Jesuit priest who's also an astronomer, and he's the director of the Vatican Observatory. And so he says this. He's a very smart person.
Okay, here's a person checking their mail at a mailbox. The car slowed for them, even though they weren't a factor and they were moving away. But it did slow. It did see her, so that's great.
He says, "Well, truth is a moving target." You know, so basically, to know what is real out there, like gravity or something like that, you've got to approximate it. And as human beings, you know, we have senses to tell us what, at least so we don't get hurt. You know, we're not going to fall off a building or something like that. We have eyes to see and things like that. So we can approximate what reality is, but we're never going to get to it.
Okay, here comes another roundabout. Looks like this white car is going to beat us to it. It was slowing down, but then I give it a little bit of accelerator to help it through. Yeah, we take it nice and slow and then exit at the appropriate exit.
Unless we develop better senses, okay? And I think that is what we are in the process of doing. We're developing better senses. We have telescopes, we have microscopes, we have, you know, extensions of ourselves, which are now called technology, and we can get to a better understanding of what reality is and what the objective world is, and therefore our beliefs can be honed. So we can get better beliefs, more accurate beliefs.
Okay, here's a 25-mile-per-hour turn. We're currently doing 45. We have traffic coming towards us, and the car slows down to a reasonable speed. Not all the way to 25, which is fine. 30 felt safe and controlled, and that's about how fast I would have gone, personally. Okay, with this flashing yellow here, which is just signaling the traffic signal up ahead, I kind of reacted a little bit to it by slowing down slightly. And here we are for a left-hand turn at the light. Okay, autopilot's correctly identifying that there are two cars in front of us. I guess that van is a little bit taller, so it sees it over the top of this car. Okay, it's our turn with a protected left turn. Okay, it's still protected. And we turn. And that was a superior left-hand turn. Absolutely perfect, flawless. Very good to see. I could not have turned better myself. It actually felt smoother than if I were driving. Okay, so next thing's next. Here in about 3/4 of a mile, we need to be in the right-hand lane for a right-hand turn. Personally, I would be in the right-hand lane now, especially knowing that autopilot doesn't accelerate all that quickly normally off the stop line here. And it looks like we'll probably have some cars piling up behind us. Okay, we're actually pulling ahead of that van. And if it were me, I would get in the left-hand lane sooner than later. But we're going to let autopilot do its thing and get over when it feels like. Here's another opportunity coming up here to get in the right lane. With Navigate on autopilot, if you remember, typically it has, okay, it's vibrating the steering wheel, it's going to get over, it feels like, maybe. It's vibrating the steering wheel and the map justified over. Perfect, okay. Great timing. We're about a quarter of a mile from our turn. That was super good. But what I was saying was with Navigate on autopilot, it has that shadow gray line that will tell you what lane it's trying to get into. Sometimes it does that for 30 seconds to a minute before it actually initiates it. So it gives you kind of a heads up that it's wanting to get over in the future at some point. I haven't seen that from Full Self-Driving, although it would be very nice to kind of have some input as far as if it's thinking about doing a maneuver or not. Okay, so here comes our right turn. I see no reason this won't complete successfully, but I shouldn't speak too soon. Pretty good. No semi-trucks. So this is kind of an interesting sign here, because it's no semi-trucks. We're not a semi-truck. And we make it through great. Oh, look at this. Straight to a edge case of sorts. Perfect. I love this. Outstanding. Okay, we're almost to our destination. And it turns, oh, that was point A to point B. Uninterrupted video. Man and a dog. Okay, that's great. Point A to point B. I've had no disengagements today. That's my second drive of the day. Point A to point B to point C with no disengagements.